how do you hire, train, and develop a sales team in roofing?
Well, first and foremost, it's tough.
Or is it always having ads running? Is it all like, what are you doing in the always be?
All kind of sound the same, but it's them themselves. There's a time to salvage a relationship, and there's a time to move on from it.
Welcome to the Roofing Success Podcast, your go-to source for insights and inspiration to achieve ultimate success in your roofing business. I'm your host, Jim Aline, the co-author of Internet Marketing for Roofing Contractors and the best-known roofer, and the co-founder of Roofer Marketers. As part of the leadership team for the Roofing and Solar Reform Alliance, I'm here to bring you the best from the industry. In each episode, I sit down with top industry leaders to dive into their strategies and valuable lessons to help you find success in roofing. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. Today we have Chris Barringer from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, MD Roofing and Solar. How's it going, man?
It's going well. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, man. It's good to have you. How did you get into roofing, Chris?
I guess it's kind of a funny story. I spent 23 years working for Reebok. Adidas bought them out. So I'd spent a lot of time in the retail world. And that just came from playing sports as a young kid and, a fascination with shoes. And there was no Nike outlets in the marketplace at that time when outlet malls were becoming a thing. And I was in high school looking for a job. So I went to work at Reebok, and little did I know it was going to turn into a career, but I was 15 and I turned around. Next thing I knew, I was 36 and still working there. And I had a fantastic experience there. But, retail in the industry that we're in today versus 2000 wasn't the same. You didn't know if your store was going to be open the next year. You didn't know what was going to be anticipated from it. So at the end of the day, I decided to start looking. And I looked and I went into the telecommunications industry for about a year, and it wasn't for me. I was traveling around. I was a multi-unit manager, and I left there with an opportunity to have some paychecks coming through. My position was essentially eliminated. And so I decided to take a chance. I'd always wanted to do commission sales. But in Myrtle Beach, the thing to do commission sales was timeshare. And there's a little part of me that has enough morals in me to not do timeshare, but still do roofing, right? And so I just couldn't pull myself to do the timeshare thing. And I started looking, and I found MD Roofing on Indeed. And I said, you know what, it's commission sales. I'm going to try it, but I had to lie a little bit in my interview, right? They asked me about my fear of heights and everything else. And I'm like, yeah, I can get on a roof. And then the next thing you know, I'm on a roof and I look like Bambi on ice trying to figure out how to navigate it. But at the end of the day, man, it was something I tripped and fell into, to be completely honest with you. I trusted the owners of MD Roofing, Randy and Ryan, that I liked their vision. I trusted what they were saying was who they were and what this industry could be. And next thing you know, I'm out in a truck with my trainer, and he's saying, "Go knock these doors," and here we go.
That's awesome. And how does that? Where has that led you?
Yeah, so I started out knocking doors like most of us in this industry, right? Not knowing exactly what I was going to say or how I was going to say it. I didn't know anything about roofing. I joke around with my sales team today. I still don't know anything about roofing. What I do know is I feel good I can talk to most people and understand what they're asking, and then be able to translate that to what I have to offer. So that's what I took to a door. And, lo and behold, after a couple of weeks of knocking doors, I get my first roof, and I look at the paycheck from it, and I'm like, holy cow. I probably should have been doing this a long time ago. I love tennis shoes, but everybody needs a roof, and I can sell these things, right? So down that path, I sold roofs for about 3 years. We continued to grow as a company here in MD Roofing, and I just kind of went to Randy and Ryan, our owners here, and just said, hey, look, as we continue to grow, is there any value in a sales manager? And we debated it back and forth for a little while, and I kept selling. And finally we got to a point where they were like, you know what, it makes sense. And so I came on board again, transitioning from sales into a sales manager's role where I still didn't know exactly what the heck I was doing, and had to figure it out as we go because it was a new position for us. And as I watch in RSRA and other platforms, people, when they transition into that role, it's a change. One, you're not making the money you once thought you were, right? Because you're not selling every day. You don't necessarily control your own future. You're turning it over to your sales team. So there's a lot of pressure to make sure you're hiring and training right. And so I transitioned into that role. And again, the first 6 months, I was a deer in headlights. I had no clue what I was doing. We were figuring it out as we went. And as a company, we were partnered up with another, consultant possibly is the right word, in Smash and John Paramore. And meeting him face to face and talking to him for 2-3 days in St. Louis, it really opened up what I was looking to do and kind of taking me down a path of how to translate what I learned at Reebok and Adidas, translate that into roofing. Because really it's managing people and let's face it, when you got sales teams, man, you're managing egos, right? So how do you manage those things? How do you work within those boundaries, but also produce people that are there to be successful and be a part of a team? So that's kind of where we're at now. Now, I take that back. It started out as a sales manager. I just found out the other day, I got new business cards and it said director of sales. So I got a promotion, didn't know about it, but I'm going to take it and I'm going to run with it.
So I wanted to talk to you. We talked the other day, and I wanted to talk to you. The first question, you've been very intentional about. It seems you've been very intentional about the hiring, training, and development of salespeople, mm-hmm. right? And kind of what you just said there. The what you took from the corporate world into roofing and developing yourself as a sales manager. Let's start with that. How do you hire, train, and develop a sales team in roofing?
Well, first and foremost, it's tough. I didn't quite realize it. I live in Myrtle Beach, right? Big tourist area. When it comes to retail, we're very intentional on hiring from March to October. And because we get an influx of tourism and stuff along those lines. So it's real big in the March, April timeframe of hiring. And then you try to hold on to a few people, and then you're reaching out to friends and family to fill those gaps in the holiday season, so to speak, right? Biggest change from that to here is you got to always be recruiting. You always have to be hiring, whether it be Indeed, job postings, website. If you get an opportunity to talk to somebody about a job with you, you need to take it because you never know who that next all-star salesperson is going to be. We've seen a lot of great salespeople come. We've seen a lot of great salespeople go. They're still in the industry and they're doing great things in other places. But how do we find the right people for us in the industry that we're in right now? So the first and foremost thing is always be recruiting. No matter who you're talking to, that's a potential person to come work for you. I also think it's extremely important to be very direct in your interview. This is not the easiest business to get into. There's a lull, so to speak, in the front end of this that you've got to be able to survive. And if you can survive those first 90 days with great intention, you tend to be successful. It's those people that get to 90 days, they haven't been intentional with what they're trying to do and just think the sales are going to come. If you're not putting that legwork in, it's just not going to happen. So we've done a good job at MD Roofing, I think, of trying to set you up for those first 90 days of being successful. You're with a trainer. Your trainer is to be by your side until you sell $250,000. If you're out there by yourself and your trainer's not with you at that point in time, I've set you up for failure is how I look at it. So we've got to make sure that we've set you up for as much success as we possibly can. We talked about it last week. I spent 4 or 5 months trying to put together a training manual, and then we switched CRM systems. Well, it was a great switch, but what I didn't realize was now I had to go redo 4 months worth of work because I had built a training manual based off of one CRM. And in doing so, I was like, man, that's a lot of time and effort to restart all of that. What's another option? And so I met I believe her name was Kennedy over at RSRA, just through the website and everything, and talked to her a couple of different times, and finally said, let's pull the trigger on this thing, and took the Roof Strategist. And what I found was every person I was hiring was watching the Roof Strategist on YouTube before they even came here. So why not piggyback on that, right? Why not people that I had here for 2-3 years that were great salespeople? We would go to a conference and the first thing they would ask is John Cenac in this? Well, everybody wants that information. So why not give them the extended version of what you see on YouTube and Facebook and NTS and all these other things? So that's how we end up in our RSRA. And at the end of the day, now we've got a platform to where somebody comes in, not only do they have a digital means, we're sitting here in the middle of a tropical storm right now. We can't go knock doors per se. You can, but you can't get up on the roofs. But at the end of the day, now's a great time to watch a couple of playbacks of John Cenac and finish your RSR training and go through those marketing battle passes that he has in there. So that's really how we ended up in RSRA in our training program. Now was I looked at it as why reinvent the wheel? I loved my training program that I put together, but why not take that and mesh it with the people that have been doing it? No need to start all over.
Yeah, I love that. Let's dig a little bit deeper into the hiring, because it's the always be recruiting, right? So speak to that a little bit more in depth. You're always just looking for people. Is it everyone you talk to at the gas station or is it always having ads running? Is it all what are you doing in the always be recruiting aspect?
I think it's always all of that, right? I change up our Indeed ads occasionally, about every 30 days. They look different. They sound different. They kind of have a different flavor to them, because you never know who you may attract, right? That's one. Two, you just never know who you're talking. The back of my business card doesn't have it's got a QR code. So our sales guys have a QR code for solar on the back of their business cards. Mine is direct to our application, right? So at the end of the day, if I'm given a business card, I'm given a business card because of one of two things. I either want your business or I want to do business with you, right? So if I'm passing out my business card, there's an intention behind it. I want people to scan that, and I want them to see that, hey, you can make 6 figures here. Living in Myrtle Beach, you got a couple of ways to make 6 figures. You can go sell timeshare, but you got to leave your soul at the door. And I got plenty of friends that sell it, and God bless them. But you can do that. You can sell real estate, because it's a growing market right now, and real estate agents are making a killing as people move to the Myrtle Beach area, which we love, because the more people move here, the more roofs you got to do, right? But then at the end of the day, outside of going and being a doctor or something along those lines, roofing is the industry here in Myrtle Beach. If you look at just the population and the amount of companies that are here per capita, it's kind of crazy. We talk about it all the time, and it's getting a slice of that pie. But in terms of recruiting, I think for us, we're looking for 10, 15 guys in our marketplace that fit a culture, understand that we're W-2, we're not 1099. We're a little different than our competitors, but at the same time, we try to pull from what all our competitors are doing. We've got some great examples in our marketplace of different avenues of ways other roofing companies do really well. How do we stand out? RSA is a great way for me to stand out to other people. My training program looks completely different than everybody else's, because I have the backing of Adam and John and those guys who, I've met John probably twice. I've never met Adam in person, but at the end of the day, they've got my back when it comes to training, which is a pretty cool thing to say when I'm talking to that person that's trying to decide why MD Roofing versus our competitors. Is the same people you're watching that has got you interested in coming into our industry. They've got our back because they're part of our training program.
That's interesting, man. I've never thought of it that way. And, I'm part of the RSRA, and I work with these guys all the time, but that training piece, it's what these guys are doing anyway. Yeah. Right. Whatever kind of training you have at your shop, if they are looking to really progress in their careers, they're going to go and find other resources, and those are the other resources they're going to find, along with some others. But like,
absolutely,
they're definitely going to be watching that Adam Bensman, right?
Yeah.
Like that's like, and so I love that you've done that. You've taken that and said, hey, we're gonna make this part of it. Like, we know you're going to go and do this also. Why don't we open this up and have that training as that? You talked about the first 90 days. So you hire someone. Let me go back to hiring for a second. So you're always recruiting. You're always just trying to find people. You got ads running. You're talking to people, all of that. What attributes are you looking for in a person that makes you go, yeah, we want to give this person, like this person might have what it takes?
I think the number one thing for me is when I'm interviewing somebody, obviously their ability just to talk to me in a setting, right? My office is very casual, very laid back. I'm a sports guy. I've got, the Chipper Jones photo behind me, a Masters golf tournament flag. I'm a sports guy. I want to be able to talk to you. It doesn't have to be about roofing. I just want to be able to talk to you, because at the end of the day, and I say this to every person I hire, I say it to everybody we talk to that's in our program. MD Roofing doesn't sell anything different than every other roofing company out there. We all sell roofing systems. I need somebody to be able to buy you, not me. I can go stand in front of somebody and talk to them all day long. We've spoke for 30 minutes the other day on the phone. We've never met, and it was just casual. It works. This is something that I can do. I know that. At the same time, too, I need people that can do that exact same thing. Can you stand in front of a homeowner that you maybe don't have anything in common with, but talk to them for 20 minutes, 30 minutes? How do you interact with people? Quite honestly, how do you show up for jobs? I mean, I had a guy the other day that came in for a great interview, fantastic interview. He stood up, and I didn't realize it because he was put in the conference room before he showed up. He's in there in slides and socks. And I'm like, if you're showing up for the job interview like that, how are you showing up for the homeowner, right? I want the right presence. I want us to be the professional roofer when we show up at the door. So can you portray that in our interview? How do you talk? How do you act? Can you feel relaxed? If you're showing up at the doorstep just reeking of, I need the money, let me in, come on, this is how this is going to work. That's probably not the right avenue, because that homeowner has to trust that when you're knocking on their door, that you're there for their best interest and not there because you need the commissions, right?
Yeah.
So making sure that I'm hiring the right people who have the right mentality, have the ability to talk, and probably something that I learned a little bit from Adam and a little bit from my conversations with John Paramore as well is every person has to have a why, and that why can't be to help people. Because every time we say it's to help people, those same people that you're trying to help are the first homeowners that take advantage of you, right? Because they know you're there to help. And so what is your why? Why do you show up at work every day? And is it a short-term goal? Is it a long-term goal? Is it sons and daughters? Is it wives and fiancés? Is it simply the fact that you have a desire to retire at 45? Because this is an industry that can provide that to you if you do it correctly, right? So what's your why? And I think that's the big thing that we've really tried to get into this year is what's your why? Because at the end of the day, we all make money as long as you're selling. But the why is what keeps you selling. I've seen a lot of people sell a lot of money and then they fall off because they can't attribute that why as to why they should keep going. They've made more money than they've ever seen. And now it's like, let's go enjoy life. But at the same time, too, the people that have been so successful in this industry, whether it be at MD Roofing or other companies now or anything like that, those guys that have that why, they continue to push forward at a rate that makes them better than everybody else. So finding that why, so that when I do have to have a conversation with you, whether it's because you're being successful or because maybe you're struggling, if you're being successful, how close are you to that why? If you're struggling, hey, let me get you back on track. And here's your why. You told me this. Let me work with you to get you there. And so having a why, if they can come in here and tell me a why and it be a legitimate why, I can buy into you and give you a great opportunity to reach that why. If you don't know why you're here, maybe you're not the right fit.
Do you dig into that in the hiring process? Like as you're hiring people, is that where you're digging into the why? Or it's like, okay, good, they have these certain attributes. Now as we're in that first 90 days, as we're training them and developing them and things like that, is that where you're asking for the why?
I want to know the why as we go into the training, so that when you get into those tough parts of training, because no matter who you are, I know two people in the 6 years that I've been in the roofing industry that have started out and it just been immediate, where they tripped and fell, right? I started on the same day as a gentleman that works with us right now. Me and him are still here. We literally started the same day. The first door he knocked, guy answers, lets him on the roof, insurance claim called in. 3 days later, there's an inspection. A week later, you got paperwork. I'm like, holy cow, how did this happen? Meanwhile, it took me 3 weeks to get my first one, right? Yeah. And so I know that that's not the norm. Yeah. But as they find that toughness, I can dig into that why a little bit more, as long as I know what it is to poke and prod. So if your why is to own 2 rental properties so that you can start having passive income, great. Now, why do you want those 2 rental incomes? Why do you need that passive income? What does that mean to you? And as we start building you into your training, I poke and prod a little bit more into those things so that I understand how to keep those people motivated and on that track. Because what I don't want to be is, hey, why haven't you sold anything? It's like, hey, you're not getting any closer to your 2 rental properties. What's going on? How can we help you get those? Let's not forget, that's why you're here. And then resetting those goals. I try once every 3, 4, 6 months, just depending on how much they're selling, to reevaluate those things. Some people reach those goals in 6 months. How do we sit back? Okay, let's reevaluate. Now you've got your rental property. What do you want now? What's the next thing? And it can be anything from a truck to taking my kid to Disney World to what is your next short-term one. And then as we get them going in those short terms, we start building out those long-term goals, right? Owning a house, building a house, whatever that might be. You know, my personal one is to never have to put a coat on, right? My wife's from Brazil. I never want to have to put a coat on. I want to live there in the summer and here in the summer and enjoy the good life when it's time for me to stop working. How do I get there, right? So there's my long-term why. And I mean, I just don't want to have to wear a coat, man. I want coconuts and drinks by the beach every day.
Yeah. Man, I tell you that this just sounds like it sounds like you're just selling.
Yeah.
Right. So like when we're going in and sitting at that kitchen table, we need to know what's most important to that homeowner.
Yeah. So every homeowner is different.
Right.
What we as salespeople, and that's kind of, where my primary focus is I can't use the same door pitch on every person. My door pitch has to sound the same. Look, man, I'm an Atlanta Braves fan through and through, but if my guy's got a Yankees flag in his front yard, I can talk Yankee baseball all day long. You have to be able to adapt to your situations. We were talking before we came on about cars. My dad was in the car industry for years before he passed away. And at the end of the day, I don't know anything about cars because I would just go ask my dad and he had the answer for it, right? I never learned that aspect of it. But something I try to tell my guys is, even if you're talking to a homeowner and you have no clue what they're talking about, pretend like you're learning something. If you let them teach you something, and they're going to trust you, right? Our biggest hiccup in this industry sometimes is we're knocking on doors and people almost see us as a used car salesman at the door. We've showed up at your doorstep. I've got a used car sales pitch. Let me on your roof. You got to get them to trust you. And that trust can't come from giving the same pitch to Sally as you do to Jeremy, as you do to Jane, and on down the street. It's got to be based off of, you've got to have an intuition of who you're talking to very fast to make that connection. And the better that connection is the quicker you can evolve yourself in this industry. I've hired, I don't know how many people, and, we talked about it since going from 1099 to W-2. Part of our claim to fame per se was that we didn't have a lot of turnover when we were 1099. We have a great structure, a great team. We didn't see a ton of turnover. We went to W-2 and we started seeing turnover, right? It's just a matter of it. Some of our competitors in the market are still 1099. A lot of the guys, I joked around with you a little bit, we lost a lot of tax accountants because everybody thought they had the way of beating the IRS, which is, in the 100 and whatever years it's been around is undefeated.
That's right.
But at the end of the day, we've seen a lot more turnover, but what that does is it forces us to move through people and find people that want to be here. And what we found is that it creates a better team environment. We've got, 10, 12 guys that are really dialed into what we're trying to do. And we try to find people that fit that culture with us. And that's kind of allowed us to build into who we are and what we want to be. So when we're at the door, they all kind of sound the same, but it's them themselves versus here's a script, go say this. I want you to be natural at it because that's how people trust you.
Yeah, definitely. That being the naturalness of sales comes with the experience of sales, right? Like people start off, maybe they start off with a script, but then they learn to make that script their own, and then they learn how to adapt that script, and then it's just part of their language, right? Yeah. But I see that with kind of thinking of it in a different frame with you as a sales manager, you're almost doing the same thing, right? Like you're selling the dream of working for MD Roofing and Solar, right? Like you're on that ongoing basis. It's like a sitting down and going, hey, how can we help you get to your end goal, right? And it's an amazing thing. What does that first 90 days look like?
Yeah, so your first 90 days is, I don't want to say it's scripted out, but it's pretty close to scripted out, right? We bring you in your first days, your typical day at a W-2 job, right? It's filling out paperwork and going through the handbook and all that stuff. And then your afternoon is nothing more than practicing your door pitch. And what we take that is okay, here's kind of what you want to say. Practice it. You're going to practice it on me. I love to do training classes versus individual training, right? Because it saves me from having to say it, 15 different times. Yeah. So I love to be able to do that. Now, can't always, but we get in there and we talk a lot about what your door pitch should look like. I personally believe you have a cold pitch, a warm pitch, and a hot pitch. So how do we practice all three of those? Cold being, we're not doing any work in your neighborhood. You have no clue why I'm here. I'm knocking on your door, and I'm trying to convince you that you need me on your roof. A warm pitch is a fresh storm just happened. I recently maybe put a roof on in your neighborhood. We've done some inspections in your neighborhood. We've called some claims in your neighborhood. We've done something in your area that maybe you've seen our website. Maybe you've seen an ad. Maybe you've seen a yard sign. And then my favorite, and really should be everybody's, right, is the hot lead where, hey, I'm putting your neighbor's roof on. Their insurance company said we've got to replace their roof from the recent storms. Do you want me to take a look at yours? So we got a cold, a warm, and a hot. And so we kind of practice what those all sound like because they all sound different. And for me, I make sure we focus in on those three different pitches because I have never hired a single person that raised their hand in a sales meeting and said, I love knocking doors. If anybody's got them out there, send them my way because I've never found that person. They all want to work referrals. They all want to work this and they all want to work that. But you've got to put the 6-8 months of hard knocking in order to get to that point. Now, a hot knock where I'm about to put a roof on your house is the best knock that you can possibly do. When we went W-2, I did a lot of research, and I tell every person here, you've got to knock 100 doors to get 2 jobs. That's the national average. If you take pest control people, you take lawn care, roofers, everybody besides a Jehovah's Witness. If they knock a door, it's 2% turns into a contract. So you need 100 doors for 2 contracts when you first get started. How fast do you want to get to 10 contracts? That's a matter of how fast you want to knock 1,000 doors. Now, once you've got those 10 contracts, if you start knocking around those 10 builds, that number goes up to like 12, 13%. Now, guess what? Now I don't have to work quite as hard. I can still knock doors, but I'm knocking in a hot area where people see us, they know us. My percentages go up. The beautiful thing about this job, and we talked about how I got into it, I stayed for 3 reasons. One, the paychecks were fantastic, right? That's what we all stay for. I don't think anybody got into roofing and was like, yeah, let me do this for the money. We're like, we got into it and then we saw the money and we're like, holy cow, let me stay in this business. I got into it for that. I got into it because I worked retail. I was working nights, weekends, holidays. Before my dad passed, I got to spend Thanksgiving and the day after Thanksgiving with my parents, which was I hadn't done since I was 15 years old because I was always working Black Fridays. And then eventually they started opening at like 2, 3 o'clock in these outlet malls, right? Roofing provided that to me. And then once I got a pipeline going, I was able to, I was working 25 hours a week. And if my owner was here, he'd tell you he hated me because I got to a point where I stopped knocking doors and I was working just around my jobs, working off of flyers, working off of referrals and networking groups. And, I'm selling 50, 60 jobs a year and I didn't knock any doors. He's like, dude, if you just go knock doors, you'd make so much more money. And I'm like, yeah, but then I get to go to my kid's soccer practice. This is the only job I've ever had that I could work 20 hours a week efficiently, 25 hours a week efficiently, and spend all the time I wanted with my friends and family, enjoy the things that it brought. And it's not so much living the dream as it is, that's a reality of this industry. And, but the thing I found is we can sell that. And as I'm selling people, I've got to sell people. My job is still selling, but I'm selling people in white MD roofing versus the 30 competitors in the Myrtle Beach market. This industry, we all put the same roofs on. Whether you're GAF, Certainty, we all put the same concept on. But do they buy you? Do they buy us? And I know that my owners are still very much involved in this business. I see them or talk to them every day. They're available for all of our sales guys, which is kind of a rarity when you get to a company that's at this size. And at the end of the day, they get the most satisfaction out of seeing our guys succeed. Some of the things that we enjoy the most is I give you a great example. A gentleman that I've known him for years. I brought him into the industry. He runs all of our Lowe's leads for us. Him and his wife just went and bought their first house. And as a newlywed couple in their 20s, just bought their first house. There's something to that when he's posting it on Instagram. Not that we're responsible for it, but it makes us feel good that we provide him with the opportunity to be able to do that, right? When these guys go buy a brand new GMC Sierra, it's kind of fun to see them spending $60,000, $70,000 on a truck and not have to think, can they make the payment? Because we know they can because we know what they're selling. Those little things it makes the industry a great thing.
It is. There's something about it, right? Like and it's more and more known, but it is a gem. Like it's still a little hidden, right? But it's hidden behind that veil of having to go knock doors a lot of times, right? Like it's there's still a lot of effort that needs to go into that. You guys were really ahead of the game on the W-2 side of things and moving everyone over into W-2. And it sounds like you've had some ups and downs with that. Yeah. Let's talk through that. What was the first, why did you guys say, we're going to make this change 1099 to W-2 and we're going to commit to it? What was that initial hey, it's time?
So that really came from our meetings with John Paramore out in his group Smash. In talking with him, he said, look, this is coming. It's just a matter of, do you want to be in front of it or do you want to wait for all the changes to happen? So we sat through some meetings with him. We discussed it. We talked about it. And really what it boiled down to was, did we want to be ahead of the curve, or did we want to wait and do it with everybody else? And at the end of the day, when you start looking at it, look, if you really dig into it, and by no means am I a tax accountant or an attorney or anything along those lines, but if you tell me that you can only sell roofs for me, you have to put my logo on your truck, you have to wear my polo and sign my contract. When you really think about it, how are you an independent contractor? There is nothing independent about you, right? But that's what we were doing at the end of the day, right? And that's what a lot of companies are still trying to ride on. But what we found was, okay, if we move to W-2, how do we set this up so people can still make great money, but not have to worry about it? Look, the worst thing in the world for me was when you sell $1 million and you make $130,000-$40,000 off of that, and then next thing you know, it's April and you got to pay the IRS $30,000. Well, that sucks. But I don't care how you look at it. I don't care how much money you made. Having to write a $30,000 check is no fun, right? And I don't care what accountant you got, you're still gonna have to pay something. And so when you write that check, it's no fun. But now our guys get the checks, and last year I had guys getting refunds. When was the last time a salesperson in roofing got a tax refund? That was unheard of, right? Now, granted, you get to keep the money through the year, but at the end of the year, we were given refund checks, and so we got a head start on it. And at the end of the day, it was twofold. One, let's go ahead and do it and let's get ahead of it. But two, we're ahead of it so that when everybody else has to make the change, we're further along, because we knew there was going to be growing pains in it. We knew we were going to have to tweak. We tweaked something a month ago, and we're going to have to ever evolve it to make sure it is right, not only for us as a company, but us as a sales team and us for our employees. But what we have found is we're finding not every Joe off the street wants to come work for us. And that's okay, because we offer a 401k. When was the last 10 years ago, a roofing salesperson didn't know what a retirement plan was. Now we've got a 401k with a matching program. Health benefits. What were we as independent contractors 5 years ago? What were we paying for health insurance if we didn't have it through our wives or our partners or whatever that might be? How are we affording health care? What happened if you fell off that roof? What happened if this happened or that happened? And now it's all covered. So now when you come to work for us, you have medical, dental, short-term, long-term, life insurance. You've got a retirement plan that you can literally turn this into a career. We're based in Myrtle Beach, but if you want to go work in Georgia, give me a reason and let's figure it out. You want to go work somewhere in North Carolina, give me a reason. Let's go figure it out. We'll let you go work wherever you want to work, because there's always work to be had. But we can provide you with the opportunity to set you up not only for today, but for down the road. So if you're maximizing your 401k program, and we're matching, a percentage of that, how much better off are you long-term in this industry versus where we were 10, 15 years ago? And so what we found is we're really starting to attract more, I don't want to say more professional, but people that have more of a career background in their previous life before coming to roofing, similar to where I was, right? I was working for
more corporate, right?
Reebok and Adidas are worldwide brands that, again, to this day, I still have some of my best friends are in that industry. Some of my best friends are still in the retail world. The people that I've met at Reebok, which is where I really started, Adidas just happened to buy them, but Reebok, there's 5-6 people there that I owe a ton of who I am and what I do today to those guys, from John Mullins, who gave me my first job, to David Pulcinella, who was my first mentor in my career version of Reebok, not just working there. Those guys, they developed me into who I am today. And to this day, I can still call them because I can talk to them about how do I manage this employee, because now we're managing employees. We're not just managing independent contractors, right? So how do I set these people up for a long-term success versus just a short-term gain? And that's kind of what we're trying to find. And there's a balance there, but as we find it, we'll continue to grow.
It's a big shift, right? It's a shift in the way that you do business. And so what are some of the lessons that you've learned in that shift?
So a couple of things. First and foremost, you are never going to make everybody happy. Never. You may try, but you're never going to make every person happy. Lesson from John, and I think if my owners were here, they would probably echo this in my saying this, because I think we've learned this, man. There's a time to salvage a relationship, and there's a time to move on from it. And it's okay to go work somewhere else, and we can still be friends outside of work. But at the same time, too, if you don't want to be here at MD Roofing with who we are, it's okay, it's fine. But let's go. The longer you stay here, and it kind of, I don't want to say poisons, but it infects the rest of the team, the more damage it causes to all of us. And if you're not happy, that's okay. I feel like we've got a pretty open door. Man, look, we've all been cussed out by a homeowner. I've been cussed out by salespeople. It's okay. It's going to happen. We get emotional. We're roofers, right? We're going to get emotional fast. We go from 0 to 100 about as fast as those TRX trucks that are out there, right? So at the end of the day, it's okay. I brought 4, 5, 6 really good friends into this industry, none of which still work for MD Roofing. And that's okay. I wish them nothing but the best. I know they're having success somewhere else, but if you don't want to be here for whatever reason, whether it be because we're W-2 or something that we do, that's okay too. There's more than enough roofs that go around. Our best year we ever had, we did, 1,500 roofs. That's a lot of roofs at the end of the day. You're cranking at that point in time. Dude, that's one neighborhood in Myrtle Beach.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of them around, and so there's more than enough for all of us to eat. My goal is to change people's lives. If I can help change somebody's life, whether it be from working in retail, making $15, $20 an hour, to having nights and weekends off so that you can live and work with your family and be at the soccer practices and be at the open houses and enjoy the holidays, and you're making 6 figures, I've been successful in that realm. Then if I can get you from A to there, I'm successful, because I'm giving you not only a lifestyle and a 6-figure income, but I'm giving you the time back to your family. And that's something that a lot of jobs they steal it away from you. And this is one job that allows you to have that.
So was it the kind of the tax implications of moving from 1099 to W-2 that some people didn't like? Was that one of the biggest things, or what? Yeah. So
I would say it was twofold, actually. I think it was the tax implications, right? Everybody loves the fact that you can write mileage off. They didn't hang around long enough to hear our program. Had they would know we have a kind of a way with that, right? If you're driving your own vehicle, we as W-2 companies have to kind of compensate you for those things, and we have a way for that. And then the other avenue too of it is, and this sounds really bad maybe, but at the end of the day, we do not tell you to clock in and out. This is not a Monday through Friday job. Our numbers, and whether you work at MD Roofing or not, is not based off the number of hours you put in. It's based off the numbers that you put up. If you put up 50, 60, 70, 80, $100,000 in sales every month, nobody's asking you how many hours have you put in, how many doors have you knocked, what have you done. Your contracts are telling me what you've done. If you have $12,000 in contracts and I haven't seen you for 3 weeks, now there's questions as to what are you doing, where are you at, and how are you producing. So we still give you the freedom of a 1099 employee with some check-ins. The only thing we ask is, right, hey, look, we have a sales meeting every Tuesday. Show up for it. Be involved in it. Be a part of it. But, and yeah, hey, if I'm calling, answer, right? But at the end of the day, it's strictly based off of numbers and what you're producing. If you're producing and if you can produce $100,000 in 2 weeks worth of work, hey, I'll take your $100,000 every month and I'll move on and go find the next person. But at the end of the day, too, if you're selling $10,000 and you're sitting on my couch in my office telling me, hey, I can't make my bills, it's because you worked 1 day this month. Because had you worked 30 days this month, you would have made a whole lot more.
But that's the same as if they're 1099 too. You could see that in their impact also, right? Like, and if you have standards and quotas and things like that in your business, you're going to get to that anyway, right? But maybe the mindset was, oh, I could get away with it, but now when I'm W-2, I can't get away with it. I don't think anyone should be able to get away with that anyway, right?
A lot of it was, oh my God, I don't want to have to answer to it. I don't want to have to show up to the sales meeting. I don't want to have to do this because it's really funny. If you think about, I would guess, and this is strictly a guess, 90% of people that get into roofing sales came from a W-2 position.
Yeah.
You almost have to beg them to become a 1099 employee because they're like, whoa, what do you mean? I don't get a paycheck every week? I don't understand. Like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to – you got to beg them to make the transition from W-2 to 1099. But after about 6 months in it, and if they're successful and they're good at it, now they're tax accountants and they don't want to be a W-2 because they want to own their own business, right? So it's kind of we try to mirror the best of both worlds because we know that's the world we play in right now. I think 5 years from now, it looks completely different. As a lot of these businesses and industries have to make that transition out of what a 1099 is to a W-2 and what that really should look like and how it looks. And like we said, the IRS is undefeated. When they start looking at something, man, they're going to look at it, right? As that evolves over the next 5 years, I think that changes not only where we're at today as a W-2 company as MD Roofing, but where we're at in 5 years as an MD Roofing W-2 company. I think it evolves. And I think that is the number one thing that we as a company have to make sure we're mindful of is not to be set in our ways, but understand that what we're doing right now, we were ahead of the game. Some of the companies that are a little further behind and not making that transition right away, they're going to feel these same growing pains. And we're going to be 18 to 24 months ahead of them on those growing pains. And as long as we stay consistent and staying ahead and being open to that change, it should allow us to stay ahead of the curve. The great thing about it is we stayed ahead of the curve, and I honestly think it made our business better long term because we went from one location to multiple locations. And how does that change us long term? What does that look like long term? And does it help us evolve from being reliant upon the Allstates and the State Farms and the Progressives of the world saying yes, and allows us to say, okay, how do we focus in on just being a roofing company as well as a roofing restoration company? As we can make those transitions, I think it helps us long term.
What changes have you guys made in your business to go from that dependent on the storm restoration style roofing company to a more retail focused roofing company?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that we're still fully, away from the insurance into the retail world. I think there's got to be a healthy mix of it, right? I don't know that being one or the other is the right way, but you got to have a good mixture of both. So for me, in trying to how we build this out over the next couple of years is, how does that look as a company, and what tools do we provide? We do a lot with GAF Solar Energy and the solar shingles that they have, and our rep is fantastic. Ellsworth is a character, but at the same time too, man, if you listen to what he has to say, he's got some great knowledge. And so he said something to us the other week when he was here about how solar is nothing more than another tool in your belt. Batman doesn't fight the same villain the same way, which is ironic because our one of our owners literally has a full-on Batman outfit. So I think that's why he picked that one, right? Custom made and everything. But at the end of the day, it's having different tools in our belt. So retail is a great tool. As we see in our marketplace, Myrtle Beach, for what it is, let's call it 200,000 people resident-wise in Myrtle Beach, Horry County, a lot of roofing companies, a lot of roofers, because they've seen very successful people. There's 7 or 8 guys in our marketplace that are selling $2-3 million a year. I think last year, our top salesperson last year was right at $4 million. So at the end of the day, there's a lot of money to be made in this industry, but how do we vary that? Because in Myrtle Beach, we haven't seen that great storm the last 2 years. So for us, it was expanding into other markets. What does that look like? There's been a lot of trial, a lot of tribulation, a lot of oops, we messed that one up, and oops, we got that one right. So how do we take those things and mirror them and build them into other opportunities? We talked a little bit about it, to be a $50 million roofing company. There's one of those in our marketplace, and that's Monarch. And I think most people in our industry has heard of Monarch Roofing and what they bring to the table. And I'd be lying if I sat here and said that they don't do a fantastic job of marketing and stuff along those lines. Now, we do a fairly good job too. If you go in front of Monarch's building, you see MD Roofing signs. So we own the billboards in front of Monarch. He doesn't like it, but at the end of the day, we own them. It is what it is. We joke around. They're always up for sale, but it's a high price tag, right? But at the end of the day, they do a fantastic job of that. They really do. How do I mirror that? Right. And that's what I'm looking at is how do I take the best of all of our competitors in our market and implement it into us? And one of the things they do really good is marketing. We've updated our website. One of the things they do a great job of is social media. How do I take social media with us to the next level? We're looking into that. How do I do better in the in-home presentation? We have a partner of ours. I don't want to say a partner, but a colleague that we met at a GAF conference that's up in the North Carolina market that, man, their in-home presentation is fantastic. How do I take something of that and make it for us to be able to use? And that's kind of something I'm working on. Number one thing I'm working on right now, though, as I build all those other things out is we talk about it in every conference I've been to in the last little bit is financing. Financing is going to be a huge part of who we are. Our marketplace, I'm not on the insurance side, but I feel like it's been flagged, right? Because we do so much roofing in this marketplace for the per capita and everything. Insurance companies know where Myrtle Beach is at. I get a lot of phone calls that say, Myrtle Beach, that's down in Florida. Nope. A single insurance company hasn't mistaken where Myrtle Beach is at. They know it's in South Carolina because of the claims that we call in and everything that we do, right? But we see those deductibles. When I first started, man, it was $500 to $1,000, and today it's 2% of the home value, and the home value's gone up. So now they're talking $4,000, $5,000, $6,000. Well, how do we help homeowners offset that? How do we help homeowners in these times where, look, man, a roof is not only a want sometimes, but it's a necessity a lot of times. And how do we help you achieve that? And that's through offering different options, whether it be through finance, through insurance. No longer do my guys go to the door and say, hey, your insurance company is going to pay for your roof. They go to the door and say, hey, your insurance company is going to help pay for your roof. Let me see if you qualify for that help.
Yeah.
It's kind of like what FAFSA or when you go to college or FEMA whenever your house floods when the hurricanes come through, right? They're there to help. They ain't paying for it all, but they're going to help. And that's what financing is for us in this industry right now. Financing is help. And so making sure that we're on the cusp of being able to offer that to our customers, I think is going to hopefully help us separate a little bit, but also at the same time, just do the right thing by our homeowners.
Yeah. And that's what it is offering the right option to the right person, right? And it's again, we're going back to sales 101, which is you have to be able to solve the problem that they're having, right? Yeah. And if you can solve the problem, if you don't have a tool in your tool belt to solve the problem that they're having,
right,
you won't be able to get that sale, right? Like
you're not the right person for them.
You're not the right person. So if you are and we'll make it real simple here, if you are an asphalt shingle roofing company and someone wants a metal roof, you can't sell. You know what I mean? Like you don't have that product available to them. If you have a customer that needs to finance their roof and you don't have financing options, you just don't have the tool in your tool belt to solve that person's problem. And so I think it all comes down to that, right? A lot of it just comes down to that. We're just here to solve problems.
Yeah. I think there's been a big push, I think, recently through RSRA. You can see some of the trainings and the podcasts and stuff that we all listen to. And one of the things you're hearing a lot about is how like solar and solar energy, whether it be panels or shingles, can kind of alleviate some of that burden off of a homeowner based off of the rebates, especially here in South Carolina. There's some great rebates when it comes to
rebates and financing options.
That go in there. Yeah. Those are great options for people. One of the things I think that I've found, not only from the sales guys I have now, but maybe some that I've had in the past, and even some that I talk to that are with other companies, man, we can't be afraid to offer those things. I'll never forget one of the first things I learned when I worked in retail. Supposedly, it could be true or not true, so I'm going to qualify it like that. But my manager gave it to me. His name was John Mullins. Great guy, taught me a lot, not only life, but at the end of the day was a great first person to teach me how to work, taught me a work ethic to a certain extent, right? He told me American Express did a little contest with people, and they said, look, here's an American Express card. You can spend whatever you want on this card. You'll never have to pay for it, but they have to sell you whatever it is. You can't just want to buy it. The person has to sell it to you. And these people would go into retail stores as a retail experiment, and you had to sell them this product. Well, most companies had a quota, right? We want you to sell 2.5, 3 items and or sell $60, $70 worth of a transaction. You know, we want you to sell a UPT or an IPT based off of your company and an average dollar ticket, average dollar price per transaction. They had that. And what they found was most people, when they hit that average, stopped. They stopped selling. And so I take that with me today, because at the end of the day, when we walk in there, whether you're a first day roofer or a 10-year roofer, don't shop with your pocketbook. You never know what that person has in their bank account, their 401k, how much money they have invested in their home, what value it brings to them to make sure that their family, their home, and everything they've ever purchased is safe. Don't shop with your pocketbook. Offer them everything you have in the toolbox and let them decide, because you never know. One of the people I know outside of roofing, he has no clue about roofing, is a gentleman that worked for me when I worked at Reebok. I'd say he's a good friend of mine. I won't go as far as saying an idol, but he's a really good friend of mine that I lean on to talk to about stuff that we go through on a regular basis that's outside. They have an outside perspective. He owned his own business in California, grew up in Southport, North Carolina, moved to California, built a life for him, and came back here and was able to retire at the age of 55. So I look up to him because I'm 45, and I'll be damned if I wouldn't love to be retired at 55, right? And I talk to him probably once a week, if not twice, so once every 2 weeks, about different things. And he has such an outside perspective that sometimes he brings me back to life, that he talks about what this industry would have been to him had he found it 10, 12, 15, 20 years ago. And he's dumbfounded at the opportunities that people have through this industry. And talking to him, it kind of brings me back down to life and a little bit of realization that, man, we really are lucky. And I try to pass that on to these guys when I'm telling them, hey, offer these things in the tool belt. The bigger your tool belt, the better off you are in solving people's problems. The more problems you solve, the better you become and the more referrals you get. The best salespeople in this industry do two things. They take advantage of every opportunity, whether it be financing, solar, asphalt shingles, metal roofs, Euro Shield, whatever it is. You're going to find a way to put that on that homeowner's house to make them happy, and it's going to lead to referrals. They have a plan, they know how to execute it, and they have a why. If you have those three things, a plan, a way to execute it, and a why, you can become unstoppable in this industry.
Yeah, man, that's awesome.
I think if we do a good job of making sure you have all the avenues to fulfill those plans, right. I think we do a fantastic job of that. We've done the solar shingles, we've done the timber steel. We're getting ready to put on our first Euro Shield roof, which might be the first one in South Carolina. I'm not 100% sure, but it's darn close. We give all of our guys the opportunity to do those things. At the end of the day, can we take full advantage of that? And I think the more we do that, and the better we put our guys in the position with all those products and financing and the ability to make life-changing money and life-changing experiences. Picking up your kid from the school bus every day at 3:00 is a life-changing experience if that's important to you. We can provide that, and that's something that roofing provides across the country. That's not something specific to MD Roofing, but man, this is an industry that gives you that, and that's something that I think sometimes we get lost because we take it for granted once we've become to, it's our everyday. Like we forget, oh my God, man, what would it be like to have to go back? If you ask me today to go back to Reebok, to this day, lifetime discount at Reebok and Adidas, I still wear the shoes all day, every day. If you ask me to go back to work for them, I'd tell you to kick sand. There ain't no chance.
No chance. If you were to start over, right, like looking back with all the knowledge you've gained through the years, you've gone through everything from really getting down and understanding supplementing and being an adjuster. And like you've developed a lot of knowledge over the years from a sales in sales and sales management. Mm-hmm. If I took you now and placed you back in your shoes when you started, what would you do different?
Man, I told you earlier, I'd probably knock more doors because I'd have more money in my bank account. But I think one of the biggest things that I did personally that made a big difference in how I looked at things was about 3 years ago, I kind of saw it coming because I was getting hit hard with repairs, denials. How do I overcome those things, right? So I had to start building a tool belt. So the first thing I did in building my tool belt was, what are these adjusters looking at? And how are they operating? I found two things. One, to get your adjuster's license in the state of South Carolina is as simple as taking the test. Study for it, take the test. So I went and took the test. So now I have an adjuster's license. So that helps me with my homeowners because now I can talk policy because I have an adjuster's license. So being able to talk to my homeowner about what their policy says and how that affects what they're trying to do. Do they have code upgrade? How long do they have to do that? I can read and interpret an 87-page homeowners insurance thing, which most people can't. Most people just say, hey, man, give me the best price. I want out of this thing. Let me do what I can do. And the next thing you know, you got to file a claim. And you got a $10,000 deductible. And you're like, what just happened? Most people don't know that. So I did that. So I would say invest your time not only in figuring out what you are as a sales pitch. My sales pitch has to be me. My sales pitch can't be you. It can't be Adam. Adam is fantastic, and I love the fact that people look him up online. But Adam has a personality that doesn't match every person, right? And if you can't match that energy and say those things with the confidence, you have to adjust your pitch. Understanding that you have to be an individual in this industry. The number one thing I would change, though, if I started over today in this industry, forget the whole door knocking thing. Yes, I would do that. Number one thing I would say we could all do better at, and I'm talking about my sales guys and probably every sales guy, follow up with your customers better. Follow up is the number one reason why we lose a lot of our sales, whether it be to another roofer, whether it be because they just lose interest. A better follow-up schedule is absolutely vital to being successful in here, because it does a bunch of different things. It gets you paid quicker at the end of your jobs if you're following up. It definitely helps with your referrals. And like I said, nobody comes into this industry saying, let me knock as many doors as you've got. They want to knock as few as they possibly can, right? Follow-up. A lot of people in our industry, the reason why a lot of us in this industry get, I don't want to say a bad name, but a bad rap, is because I show up, I knock on your door, I tell you got issues on your door, insurance comes out and says, no, it's not, and then you never see or hear from me again. That doesn't do you good as the salesperson. It doesn't do me good as your competitor, because now I'm associated with you, even though I have nothing to do with you. Follow up with your customers, whether it be a denial and you got to flip them to a retail job, whether it be a denial and you need to figure out how to fight for that customer. If you showed up and you built that trust at the door by saying, I'm going to fight for you, you damn sure better go fight for that customer. Because if you don't, you've lost all credibility in that neighborhood that you spent a lot of time trying to get into. And so at the end of the day, I would say following up is probably the one thing I would love, not only for myself when I first started, but every person that starts now. What are you doing to follow up with those people? The best year I ever had in sales came when I had a really good track of who I had talked to and couldn't file a claim for various different reasons. They couldn't file a claim. A hailstorm hit, and I guarantee you my competitors were out there in the hail knocking doors. I'm sitting on my couch making phone calls. I had 19, 20 people to phone call. Hey, you see what's happening right now? Yep, this is what we were waiting on. Can I come out tomorrow, take a look, da-da-da-da-da? We file those claims. You know, I walked out the day after, a week after a hailstorm, and filed 18, 19 claims, not from knocking doors, but from making phone calls to people that I had just kind of sat on the back burner. I followed up with those people. They called the claim in. Well, guess what? Now their neighbors want me. Because why? I called them back 9 months after making first contact. How many roofers contact somebody 9 months after they talked to them initially? My guess is it's limited. But I hated knocking doors so much that I'd keep your name for 9 months to call you when a hailstorm hit.
So you got to build that database and follow up. Chris, man, this has been awesome. It's been another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. Thank you for tuning into the Roofing Success Podcast. For more valuable content, visit roofingsuccesspodcast.com. While there, check out our sponsors for exclusive offers, shop for merchandise, and sign up for our newsletter for industry updates and tips. Also, join the Roofing Success Facebook group to connect with other professionals and stay updated on the latest trends. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, like, share, and leave a comment. Your support helps us continue to bring you top industry insights. The website link is in the description. Thanks for listening.